Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a subject that feels incredibly counterintuitive.
It really does.
It's a topic that sits right at the intersection of how our brains are wired, how we spend, billions of dollars in public policy, and how we fundamentally understand or, well, misunderstand the world around us.
Absolutely.
We're looking at a stack of research all centered on this concept called the law of small numbers.
And it is a fascinating topic. And honestly, it's one of those things that once you see it, you just can't unsee it.
Right.
It changes the way you read the news, how you watch sports, how you interpret success and failure. I mean, even how you judge your own decisions.
That's a big claim.
Well, it's like putting on a pair of glasses that corrects a vision defect you didn't even know you had.
I love that.
Yeah.
And the source material we have today is it's heavy hitting, it's dense, it's pretty mathematical in places.
It can be.
But our mission, our goal for this deep dive is to strip all that away and get to the core insight. And to do that, we have to start with a puzzle.
A very good one.
This comes directly from the research. And I have to admit, when I first read this in the prep material, I fell for it completely.
Oh, everybody does.
Hook, line, and sinker. I was so confident in my answer, and I was just completely wrong.
Don't feel bad. It is designed to trigger a very specific and very confident part of your brain.
Okay, so let's set the scene for you listening. I want you to picture a map of the United States.
Okay.
But not the standard political map or road map. I want you to visualize a heat map of health data.
Right.
Specifically, we're looking at the 3,141 counties that make up the U.S., and we're tracking a very specific statistic, the incidence of kidney cancer.
Right. So we have a massive data set here. We're talking every county, every case,
Yep.
millions and millions of data points all aggregated into these counties.
Exactly. Now, the researchers, they crunched these numbers to find the outliers. They wanted to find the counties with the lowest incidence of kidney cancer,
The bright spots, if you will.
the healthiest places in America, at least for this one specific disease.
Yeah.
And when they looked at the map, a pattern just jumped off the page.
Uh-huh.
These healthy counties, they all shared some very specific characteristics.
And what were they?
Okay, so they were mostly rural.
Rural. Got it.
They were sparsely populated.
Okay, that makes sense.
And geographically, they were located in traditionally Republican states in the Midwest, the South, and the West.
Okay, so let's recap that profile just to be clear. We got rural, we got sparse population.
Right.
And they're in Republican states, Midwest, Southwest.
That is the data. That
Yeah.
is the fact. Now, here's the question for you and for everyone listening. Why? Why would that be?
And this is the moment where I'd ask you, to just pause. Don't gloss over it. Stop and observe what your brain is doing right now.
Well, I can tell you what my brain is doing. It's immediately starting to tell a story.
Of course it is.
It's practically writing a screenplay. I'm
Well-
thinking rural,
Mhm.
okay? That means clean air. No smog like we have in the city.
Sure.
No industrial fumes.
That's the first most obvious association.
Then I'm thinking about the lifestyle.
Yeah.
I'm thinking fresh food,
Yeah.
farm to table.
All right, right.
No additives, no processed junk. If you're in a rural county, maybe you're growing your own vegetables. Maybe you're buying meat from the neighbor down the road.
A very wholesome image.
It is. And then there's the stress factor.
Yeah.
Or the lack of it. You're out in nature. You're not sitting in gridlock traffic. You're not breathing in subway exhaust.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're working with your hands, doing physical labor on a farm, which, that keeps you fit.
Mhm.
It makes perfect sense that clean, traditional living leads to less cancer.
It makes absolute perfect sense. It's a completely coherent story.
And even the Republican part, maybe that's just a proxy for traditional values. A rejection of modern toxic vices, maybe.
You're building a very compelling narrative. And if you're listening to this, you probably came up with a similar list. Maybe you thought about the water quality. Maybe you thought about tight-knit communities reducing stress.
Exactly. It feels like a solid explanation. I'm ready to pack my bags and move to the countryside to save my kidneys.
And here's what's happening physiologically right now. The source material describes this beautifully. In the few seconds after you heard that data, your mind engaged in what's called a System 2 operation.
Okay, system 2.
You were deliberately searching your memory. You were formulating a hypothesis. Your pupils actually dilated.
No way.
Your heart rate increased measurably. You were actually doing cognitive work.
It felt like work. It felt like I was trying to solve a riddle. I was connecting the dots.
But, and this is the absolute key, your System 1, that automatic, intuitive part of your brain. It wasn't just sitting there.
Right.
It was feeding you suggestions. It retrieved all these associations with rural life and health. It latched onto the rural part because it fits a narrative archetype we all have, the pastoral ideal.
The narrative of the healthy countryside versus the sick city.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the statisticians who first pointed this out, Howard Weiner and Harris Swerling, they noted how tempting it is to infer that these low cancer rates are directly due to that wholesome rural lifestyle.
It feels right.
It feels truthful.
Okay, I can hear the trapdoor creaking open under my feet. You're setting me up.
I am. So here is the twist.
Lay it on me.
Now, I want you to consider the counties with the highest incidence of kidney cancer. The absolute worst places for this disease.
Okay.
The deadliest counties in America.
I'm bracing myself. Inner cities. Old industrial Rust Belt towns. Is that where this is going?
No, these ailing counties tend to be mostly rural.
What?
Sparsely populated and located in traditionally Republican states in the Midwest, the South, and the West.
Wait, no.
Identical characteristic.
Hang on, that just stops me in my tracks. Because my whole story, the whole rural lifestyle thing, the clean air, the fresh food, that logic can't work both ways.
It cannot.
It can't explain the lowest rates and the highest rates at the same time.
Exactly. You can't say clean air prevents cancer in County A and then look at County B, which has the exact same clean air, and say, well, obviously the isolation causes cancer. The logic breaks.
But if I'm being honest, if you had only given me the data about the high cancer rates.
If I had only told you the bad news story first.
Yeah. My system one would have immediately generated a completely different but equally convincing story.
I'm sure it would have.
I would have said, well, rural means poverty.
Mm-hmm.
It means no access to good hospitals, no specialists. It means a high-fat diet, too much red meat, too much fried food.
Maybe more alcohol, more tobacco use.
Right. I could have constructed a perfect causal story for why rural life causes cancer, just as easily as I constructed one for why it prevents it.
And that is the trap. The rural lifestyle cannot explain both. So something else has to be going on, something that has nothing to do with air quality or diet or politics at all.
So what is the answer?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not the fresh air and it's not the poverty, what is the one common denominator here?
The key factor isn't that they're rural or Republican or in the Midwest. The key factor is simply that rural counties have small populations.
Small population.
That's it. That's the whole secret.
Okay, let's unpack this, because honestly, that feels, I don't know, anticlimactic and confusing. How does having a small population make you have either low cancer or high cancer? Are you just saying small towns are weirder?
In a statistical sense, yes, absolutely, they are weirder. And this brings us to the thesis of our deep dive today. This is the law of small numbers.
Okay.
What we are seeing here is not a biological fact about cancer at all. It's a statistical artifact.
An artifact. What does that mean exactly?
It means it's an observation that is produced entirely by the method of research, in this case, the sample size, rather than by the reality of the disease itself.
Oh.
You see, your system one is an associative machine. It loves patterns. It loves causes. When it sees high cancer, it screams, find the cause. But system one is, well, it's terrible at understanding merely statistical facts.
So we were looking for a medical reason, like a doctor would.
Mm-hmm.
But the answer is actually a math reason.
Precisely. And to really understand this, we have to get away from cancer for a second, because a topic like cancer carries too much emotional baggage.
Okay.
We need to visualize something much, much simpler. And the source material uses a great analogy for this, involving an urn full of marbles.
I love a good analogy.
Yeah.
Help me visualize this without making me do complex calculus.
Okay, imagine a giant urn, just a huge vase. And inside, you have millions and millions of marbles. Half are red and half are white.
Got it. A perfect 50-50 split.
Now, imagine two people are going to count these marbles to see what the ratio is. Let's call them Jack and Jill.
Okay.
Jack is very patient, but he counts in small batches. He blindly reaches in and draws just 4 marbles. He records the number of red ones, throws them back, and does it again.
A sample size of 4. That is a tiny, tiny sample.
Very small. Now, Jill is also patient, but she's a little more thorough. She draws 7 marbles at a time.
Still small, but, almost double Jack's.
Exactly. Now, they are both looking for extreme outcomes. In this case, an extreme outcome means drawing all red or all white marbles, a completely homogeneous sample.
Okay, so intuitively, if the urn is 50-50, getting all red or all white should be pretty rare for both of them.
It is rare, but here's the critical question. Who is more likely to see those extreme results? Jack with his tiny sample of 4 marbles, or Jill with her slightly larger sample of 7?
Well, if I just go with my gut, I feel like maybe it's the same. I mean, it's the same urn. It's the same 50-50 mix of marbles. The odds should be the same.
And that hesitation is completely normal. That's your intuition telling you that random is random. But let's just think through the math very simply.
Okay.
Jack is drawing 4. For him to get all red, he just needs to get lucky 4 times in a row. It's like flipping a coin and getting heads 4 times.
Okay, that happens. I mean, I've seen that happen.
But Jill needs to get lucky 7 times in a row.
Okay. I see it now. It's definitely way harder to flip heads 7 times in a row than 4 times.
Oh,
Exactly. The probability drops off a cliff with every single marble you add. So Jack, the small sample, will observe these extreme outcomes much, much more often.
I'll look more.
In fact, mathematically, Jack will see these extreme results, all red or all white, 8 times more often than Jill will.
8 times more often. Just because he's grabbing 3 fewer marbles, that's a huge difference.
It's a massive difference, and this is a mathematical certainty. It's not a theory. Samples of 4 always yield extreme results more often than samples of 7. Small samples are volatile. They bounce around all over the place. Large samples are stable. They hug the average.
Okay, so let's bring this back to the kidney cancer map. The marbles are people.
Right. Think of the entire U.S. population as the millions of marbles in that giant urn. Some are marked kidney cancer. Most are marked healthy.
And the counties are the samples we're drawing.
Precisely. And a rural county is like Jack. It has a very, very small sample size. Maybe only a few thousand people.
So just by pure chance, like Jack drawing 4 red marbles, a small county might end up with 0 cancer cases for a year.
Exactly. If you have a town of, say, 1,000 people, and the true cancer rate is 1 in 500, you could easily get 0 cases just by the luck of the draw. That puts you at the very bottom of the list. You're a healthy county.
But you could also just as easily get 4 cases just by bad luck.
And suddenly your rate is 4 per 1,000, which is enormous. Now you're at the very top of the list. You're a deadly county.
Whereas a large county, like a big city with 1 million people,
That is like someone drawing 100,000 marbles from the urn.
Well-
The result is going to be very, very close to the true average. You will never see a big city with 0 cancer cases.
impossible.
And you will almost never see a big city with double the average cancer rate unless there's a real significant cause, like an environmental disaster.
But the small counties,
They are mathematically destined to be at the extremes. They will dominate the lowest rates list and the highest rates list just by chance.
that is just, it's mind-blowing. So the fact that they are rural is actually irrelevant to the health question.
In the specific statistical context, yes. The clean living theory and the poverty theory were both illusions. They were stories we created because our brains need to explain what is essentially a random statistical fluctuation.
The small population didn't cause the cancer, and it didn't prevent it.
It just allowed the incidence rate to bounce around wildly.
It's noise. It's just random noise. But we looked at the noise and we insisted it was a signal.
We turned it into a story. And that is the fundamental danger, because System 1, that fast-thinking, automatic part of our brain, identifies causal connections. It cannot help itself. It sees low cancer and rural, and it bonds them together with the word because. Low cancer because it's rural.
It skips right over the small sample size part.
It doesn't even see the sample size. It's basically invisible to System 1.
You know, what's so scary about this is how confident I felt. When I was explaining my whole theory about clean air and fresh food, I didn't feel like I was guessing. I felt like I knew it.
And that feeling of knowing is what we need to interrogate. The source material makes a really interesting point here. It says that you technically know that large samples are more trustworthy than small ones.
Of course.
If I asked you straight up, which is better for a study, 10 people or 10,000 people? You'd say 10,000.
Yeah, obviously. Even a kid knows that.
But knowing isn't a simple yes or no affair. It's about how deeply that knowledge is embedded in your intuition.
Ah.
The fact that the sparsely populated feature didn't immediately scream statistical artifact at you when you first heard the story, well, it shows that your intuition doesn't really get it.
I know the rule, but I don't feel the rule.
That's a perfect way to put it. You know the rule, but you don't apply it when you're told a good story.
The story is more powerful.
Precisely. And you are not alone in this. This brings us to a really comforting or maybe a disturbing part of the research. It's not just regular people who make this mistake. It's the experts, too.
Tell me about that, because surely if you do statistics for a living, you don't fall for the marble trick.
You would think so. But the author of our source material, he shares this story about a collaboration he had with a colleague named Amos back in the early 1970s. And they were debating this very idea. Are people intuitive statisticians?
Meaning, do we naturally have a gut feel for good math?
Right. Are we born with a good sense of probability and sampling? And the author came to this very personal realization that despite teaching statistics for a living, he was a terrible intuitive statistician.
He admitted that about himself.
He took it personally. He realized he was constantly making these kinds of mistakes in his own research design.
What kind of mistakes was he making?
Well, imagine you're a research psychologist. You want to prove a hypothesis. Let's use an example from the book, let's say. You want to prove that the vocabulary of an average 6-year-old girl is larger than that of an average 6-year-old boy.
Okay, and let's just assume, for the sake of argument, that is actually true in the real world.
It is true in the general population. But of course, individual kids vary a lot. You have some very chatty boys and some very quiet girls. There's a lot of overlap. Sure.
Now, doing research is expensive and time-consuming. You have to recruit families, get their consent, interview the kids, analyze the data. It costs real money.
So you want to recruit the fewest number of kids possible to save your budget.
Exactly. But this is where the researcher's gamble comes in. In statistics, there's a concept called statistical power.
Power.
Think of it like a flashlight beam in a dark room. You're looking for a hidden object, which is the truth. In this case, the truth is girls have larger vocabularies.
Okay, I like that image. The truth is in the dark room.
If your sample size is huge, if you interview, say, 10,000 kids, your flashlight is a massive floodlight. It lights up the whole room. You will definitely see the object. You will definitely confirm your hypothesis.
But if my sample size is small...
It's a pen light, a
Yeah.
tiny, weak, flickering beam. You might shine it around the room and miss the object entirely, just by bad luck.
So just by the luck of the draw like Jack and the Marbles, I might get a group of unusually chatty boys and unusually quiet girls.
And your experiment fails. It fails. I find no difference. Or, even worse, I find the opposite result.
It fails. You get an inconclusive result. And you've wasted your grant money, your time, your effort, all because your flashlight wasn't bright enough.
So you'd think these researchers would be obsessively calculating the perfect sample size to make sure their flashlight is bright enough to find what they're looking for.
You would think that. But the author, he read an article that just shocked him. It pointed out that psychologists in that era commonly chose samples so small that they faced a 50% risk of failing to confirm their own true hypotheses.
Wait, 50%? So it was basically a coin toss.
Yes, they were doing all this careful work, designing these elegant experiments, and then basically flipping a coin on whether the math would even work out purely because they didn't recruit enough people.
That is just wild. Why would they do that? I mean, these are smart people.
Because they trusted their tradition and intuition over calculation. It was just what people did. They felt in their gut that a group of 20 kids was representative enough.
They believed that the law of large numbers applied to small numbers.
Hence the title of our deep dive today.
Right.
They believed in a law of small numbers that doesn't actually exist. They thought a small sample would perfectly mirror the whole world. It doesn't. It's volatile.
So what do the author and Amos do about this? Did they just complain about it in a paper?
No, they decided to test the pros. They went to a meeting of the Society of Mathematical Psychology.
Oh.
Now, bear in mind, these are the heavy hitters. These are the people who literally write the textbooks on statistics, the people who invent the math used in psychology.
The people who definitely, absolutely should know better.
You would think. They gave them a questionnaire with a bunch of realistic research scenarios. They essentially asked them, here's an experiment. What sample size would you use to be reasonably sure of your result?
They failed.
The experts failed. The textbook authors. They made the exact same mistakes as the students. Even the authors of statistical textbooks paid insufficient attention to sample size. They chose numbers that were way too small, leaving them vulnerable to the Jack and the Marbles effect.
They were fools, just like everyone else.
Exactly. And this led to them writing their first major article, which they tongue-in-cheekily titled, Belief in the Law of Small Numbers.
That is incredibly validating for the rest of us. I mean, if the people who write the books can't feel this in their gut, I don't feel so bad about falling for the kidney cancer puzzle.
It just shows that this isn't about intelligence. It's not about education level. It's about how our brains are wired.
We are wired for stories, not statistics.
And that wiring leads to this specific bias the source mentions called confidence over doubt. There's a great acronym for this, WYSIATI.
What you see is all there is.
Let's break this down with a poll example, because this is something we see in the news every single day.
Right. So imagine I tell you this sentence. In a telephone poll of 300 seniors, 60% support the president. Okay, I've heard that sentence 1,000 times.
If I asked you to summarize that in just 3 or 4 words, what would you say? What's the gist?
Elderly support president.
Exactly. That is the story. Now, be honest. Did you stop to think about the number 300? Did that part register at all?
Honestly, no, not really. I just glossed over it. It sounds like a science number.
A science number. I love that.
Yeah, it's precise-ish. It's not 5 and it's not a million. It's just a number in the middle that sounds plausible.
Right. And research shows that unless the number was absurdly small, like a poll of 6 seniors, or absurdly huge, we treat a sample of 150, 300, and 3,000 as basically the same thing.
Wow.
We ignore the sample size entirely because our brain just strips out the math and keeps the headline.
We focus on the story.
Because System 1 is focused on the content of the message, the story, not the reliability of the source.
That is a crucial distinction. Content versus reliability.
We only question the reliability if there is an obvious, explicit reason to. Like if I said, a biased partisan group conducted a poll and found, then your alarm bells go off.
Right, then my guard is up. I'm immediately skeptical of the source's motive.
But if the source seems neutral, we just accept the story. We don't ask, is 300 people really enough to represent 50 million seniors? System 1 isn't designed to ask that question.
Why not?
Because it suppresses ambiguity.
It suppresses ambiguity. I like that phrase. It wants a clean, simple world.
It wants a coherent world. Doubt requires work. To say, well, the data suggests this, but the sample is small, so we can't be sure, requires you to hold 2 conflicting ideas in your head at once.
And that's hard.
That's System 2 work, and System 2 is lazy. System 1 just wants to get to the answer. It wants to say, the elderly like the president. Done. Next. Fact.
It's related to the halo effect, isn't it? That's another bias from the research.
It absolutely is. The halo effect is where we see one good trait in a person. Maybe they're handsome or charismatic, and we just assume everything else about them is good too. We fill in all the blanks.
We construct a whole character from one tiny scrap of evidence.
Exactly. System 1 runs ahead of the facts. It builds this rich, coherent image based on very little data. And that is exactly what we do with statistics. We take a small sample and we project it onto the entire world. We assume the small sample is the world.
Which brings us to patterns. Because if we are assuming the world is coherent, we are constantly desperately looking for patterns to prove it.
We are pattern seekers. It's a fundamental part of our nature. We cannot stand randomness. It makes us deeply uncomfortable.
And the source has a great puzzle here about babies. This one really, really messes with your head if you think about it too long.
Yes, this is all about our intuition regarding what randomness is supposed to look like. We're really, really bad at spotting true randomness.
Okay, so the scenario is a hospital. 6 babies are born in a row. We're just looking at their gender.
Right. And obviously we know that each birth is basically random. It's a coin flip, 50-50 boy or girl.
And crucially, it's independent. The fact that the last baby was a boy doesn't mean the next one has to be a girl.
Exactly. The universe doesn't keep a tally sheet. The coin has no memory.
Right.
So consider 3 possible sequences of 6 babies. Sequence 1 is boy, 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 girl, girl.
3 boys, then 3 girls.
Sequence 2 is girl, 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 girl.
All girls?
And sequence 3 is boy, girl, boy, 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 girl, boy.
A jumbled mix.
Okay. Which of these 3 sequences is less likely to occur?
Well, my system 1 is screaming that the all-girl one, sequence 2, is super unlikely. That's a freak occurrence. And sequence 1, the 3 boys, then 3 girls, seems too organized. It's too neat.
Right.
So the third one, the mixed up one, the BGB, that feels the most random. That feels like what would actually happen in the real world.
And that is the universal reaction. But what's the mathematical reality?
I know you're going to tell me they're all the same.
They're all equally likely.
Intellectually, I know that. It's a 1 in 64 chance for any specific combination of 6 coin flips. But it just feels wrong.
It feels wrong because sequence 3 looks like our stereotype of randomness. We expect it to be messy and jumbled. When we see regularity like 6 girls in a row, we reject it. We say, that's not random, there must be a cause.
We immediately start looking for mechanism. Maybe there's something in the water in this town that makes people have girls, or maybe there's some weird genetic thing going on with these families.
Exactly. We assume a mechanical cause or even an intention. We don't expect a random process to produce order. But true randomness produces clusters and streaks all the time.
Like if you pour a bag of sand on a table.
That's a great example. You get little piles and empty spots. It won't be a perfectly flat, even layer. Randomness is lumpy.
Why do we do this? Why are we so obsessed with finding causes for things that are just chance? Is there an evolutionary reason?
The source material strongly suggests there is. I mean, imagine our ancestors on the savannah.
Okay, back to the lines again.
If you see lions appearing on the plain, they might usually appear randomly, but let's say one week you see a few lions appearing close together in time. A streak of lions.
Right.
If you assume, oh, it's just random luck and you're wrong, you get eaten.
But if you assume,
whoa, the environment has changed, a whole pride is moving in, and you run away or build a better fence, you survive.
so we are hardwired to overdetect patterns. It's better to see a tiger in the grass that isn't there than to miss the one that is.
Exactly. Vigilance was inherited.
Yeah.
We are safer assuming order and cause than we are assuming chaos and randomness.
But in the modern world, this wiring gets us into all sorts of trouble. There's a story from World War II that really illustrates this, the bombing of London.
This is a classic example from the great statistician William Feller.
Yeah.
So picture London during the Blitz. The Germans are firing these V-2 rockets across the channel.
Terrifying weapons.
They arrive silently, faster than the speed of sound, and then just boom, total destruction.
And Londoners are living in constant fear. They're looking at maps of where the bombs have hit, desperately trying to find a pattern, trying to find a safe place.
Right. And looking at the map, they saw patterns. Of course they did. They saw clusters of hits in some neighborhoods. And just as importantly, they saw conspicuous gaps. Whole neighborhoods that weren't getting hit at all.
And naturally, the rumor mill starts turning.
And the conclusion was spies. That was the dominant theory. There must be German spies living in those unharmed neighborhoods, and they're radioing the coordinates back to guide the rockets away from their own homes.
Or they're targeting specific infrastructure and avoiding other areas.
It feels completely logical. Why else would there be a gap? Why else would one borough get hit 4 times and the one right next to it get 0? It can't be random, right?
But Feller did the math.
He did a rigorous statistical analysis. He divided a map of South London into a grid of small squares, and he counted the number of hits in each square. And he found that the distribution of hits was perfectly typical of a completely random process.
So the gaps were just...
blind luck. The rockets were notoriously inaccurate. They just fell randomly. But to the untrained human eye, randomness appears as clustering. We look at a map of random dots and our brain connects them. We see shapes, we see intention, we see a plot where there is only noise.
That's tragic in a way. I mean, people probably suspected their neighbors of being spies purely because of a statistical artifact.
It creates paranoia. It creates these false narratives that can tear communities apart. There's another war story in the source from the Yom Kippur War in 1973 that's even more personal for the author.
This one involves the Israeli Air Force, right?
That's right. The author was advising the Air Force. The war was going very badly in the initial stages. Losses were incredibly high. And he was told about a situation with 2 squadrons flying from the same base.
And they were basically identical. Same planes, same missions.
Yes. Same training, same type of targets. But one squadron had lost 4 planes. The other had lost none.
Oh, man. And I bet Command wanted answers immediately.
Of course. They initiated a full inquiry. They wanted to know what the bad squadron was doing wrong. Were they flying differently? Was their debriefing process poor? Was the commander incompetent? What was the cause?
What did the author tell them?
He told them to stop the inquiry.
Stop it. Just like that.
He advised the command that there were likely no operational differences at all. He looked at the situation and realized, this is the law of small numbers again.
It's the urn. It's Jack and Jill drawing marbles from the urn.
It's the urn. You have a small sample of missions. It's a dangerous coin flip every time. Just by luck, one squadron flipped tails 4 times in a row. He reasoned that a search for a non-obvious cause was not only hopeless, it was harmful.
That must have taken a lot of guts to say that to a general in the middle of a war. Sir, it's just bad luck.
But think about the human cost of not saying it. You have pilots who have just lost 4 of their friends. They are grieving. They are terrified. And now you're going to subject them to an inquiry that implies they are at fault, that they messed up somehow.
It would destroy their morale. It would add a layer of guilt on top of all that grief.
For no reason, because the entire premise of the inquiry was false. The author argued that the pilots didn't need the extra burden of being made to feel guilty for something that was purely and simply random.
That really drives home the moral weight of this. It's not just about winning a trivia game or passing a math test. This is about how we treat people. It's about blaming people for bad luck, or, on the other side, praising them for good luck.
Which is the perfect segue to something less life and death, but perhaps even more universally misunderstood. Sports.
Oh, I know where this is going. The hot hand.
The hot hand. The sacred cow of sports commentary.
Okay, look. I have to say, every basketball fan knows this is real. I don't care what the math says yet.
I know.
You're on the court, you hit 3 shots in a row.
Oh.
The rim looks like the ocean. You feel like you can't miss. You have the hot hand. The announcer screams it. The crowd feels it. It's a real thing.
It is a universally accepted fact. Players believe it. Coaches believe it. Fans scream for the ball to go to the guy who is hot. It shapes the entire strategy of the game.
And you're going to tell me it's a myth? You're going to be the party pooper and tell me it's not real?
I'm going to tell you what the research says. Amos and his students, Galovich and Vallone, they did a massive analysis. They looked at thousands and thousands of sequences of shots. Professional basketball, specifically the Philadelphia 76ers and the Boston Celtics.
Okay, so they looked at real data from the best players.
Uh-huh.
And
there is no such thing as a hot hand in basketball.
I can literally hear the listeners yelling at their speakers right now. But I've seen it with my own eyes.
No, we all feel like we've seen it. But the rigorous analysis showed that the sequence of hits and misses satisfies all tests of randomness.
So what does that mean in simple terms?
It means a player's shooting percentage is their shooting percentage. Sometimes they'll hit 3 in a row, sometimes they'll miss 3 in a row, just like a coin will sometimes land on heads 3 times. But the hot streak doesn't predict the next shot any better than their overall average would.
So if I'm an 80% free throw shooter and I make 3 in a row, my chance of making the fourth is
80%.
And if I miss 3 in a row?
Still 80%. You haven't entered a magical zone where you are now a 100% shooter. You haven't fundamentally become a different player for a few minutes.
But it feels like a zone. It feels real.
That is the eye of the beholder. Our pattern-seeking brain is too quick to perceive order and randomness. We see 3 hits and we yell, "Pattern cause! He's on fire!" But really, it's just the same randomness as the baby gender sequence. We see GGG, girl, 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 and we think something special is happening. We see hit, 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 and we think he's in the zone.
The reaction to this study must have been intense. You can't just tell the entire NBA that their favorite concept is fake.
Oh, the backlash was huge. Red Auerbach, the legendary coach of the Boston Celtics, one of the smartest minds in basketball history, was told about the study.
What did he say?
His response is an all-timer. He said, "Who is this guy?" So he makes a study. I couldn't care less.
So he makes a study. That is the sound of pure intuition rejecting data.
Yeah.
That is system 1 saying, I don't care about your numbers. I know what I see with my own eyes.
It just shows that the illusion is more powerful than the facts. We want to believe in the hot hand. It makes the world feel more manageable, more predictable. It means success is a state you can enter. It means you can control the chaos.
And this goes way, way beyond sports. I'm thinking about the stock market.
Absolutely. How many years of success do you need to see from an investment advisor before you decide they're a genius?
I mean, if they beat the market 3 years in a row, I'm giving them all my money.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, this person knows something nobody else knows.
And you might be making a huge mistake. Because in a large population of thousands of traders, just like in a large urn of marbles, someone is going to flip heads 3 years in a row just by pure chance.
And we flock to that person, thinking they have a secret. We consistently misclassify luck as skill.
We see a CEO make 3 good acquisitions in a row and we call them a visionary. But maybe they just got lucky with the market timing. And the real danger is we then bet the entire future of the company on that luck continuing.
Which brings us to the grand finale of our examples today. We've talked about basketball, we've talked about marbles. But I want to land this plane on something that really, really hurts. We need to talk about the Gates Foundation.
This is the ultimate example of the law of small numbers carrying a massive price tag, a $1.7 billion price tag.
So set the scene for us. The Gates Foundation, they decide they want to fix American education, a very noble goal.
Extremely noble. And being very data-driven people, they started by looking for the characteristics of the best schools. They scanned the data, specifically in Pennsylvania, among other places, looking for the top 50 performing schools.
The winners. The schools that are sending all their kids to the Ivy League.
Right. And they found a pattern. System 1 loves a pattern.
Let me guess. The pattern involved the size of the school.
It did. They found that small schools were massively overrepresented in that winner's circle. For example, among the top 50 schools, they found that 6 of them were small, which was an overrepresentation by a factor of 4.
So small schools were wildly, disproportionately popping up on the list of the best schools.
Yes, and this data encouraged the Gates Foundation and other huge foundations like the Annenberg Foundation and the Pew Charitable Trust to make a massive investment.
How massive?
We are talking about $1.7 billion
$1.7 billion. To do what?
to create small schools, but they didn't just build new ones. They actually went into massive functioning high schools and broke them apart.
They dismantled them.
They split them into separate learning communities, they walled off hallways, they restructured entire school districts, all to chase this small school magic they thought they'd discovered in the data.
And again, just like with the rural cancer counties, the story makes perfect sense.
It makes perfect intuitive sense. Small schools mean personal attention. The teachers know your name. There's a real sense of community. No kid can fall through the cracks. You can easily construct a compelling causal story for why small schools are better.
It's the clean living theory, but for education.
Exactly. But did they look at the worst schools?
I have a sinking feeling I know where this is going. Please tell me they looked at the worst schools.
If the statisticians had asked about the characteristics of the worst performing schools, they would have found that the bad schools also tend to be smaller than average.
Oh, no.
The small schools are at the top of the list, A and D at the bottom of the list.
Just like the rural counties with the kidney cancer? It's the same exact illusion.
It's identical. The truth is that small schools are not better on average. They are simply more variable.
The law of small numbers.
Because they have fewer students, their average test scores can fluctuate wildly from year to year. A few brilliant kids can spike the average way up, or a few struggling kids can tank it. Large schools, on the other hand, are more stable. They tend to cluster right around the true average.
So $1.7 billion was spent trying to replicate a statistical fluctuation.
Basically, yes. And Weiner and Zwirling, the statisticians we mentioned earlier, they point out that if anything, large schools actually tend to produce better results, especially in the higher grades.
Why is that?
Because they can offer more curricular options, things like advanced placement sciences, a diverse arts program, multiple foreign languages, things a tiny school just can't afford to staff.
Wow. So not only was the premise of the investment wrong, the action they took might have even been counterproductive. They broke up schools that were actually working fine to create schools that were just volatile.
The causal analysis was pointless because the facts themselves were wrong. They saw a pattern where there was only variance. It was an artifact of sampling.
That is. It's just so sobering. It really makes you realize how high the stakes are. We aren't just talking about misunderstanding a brain teaser. We're talking about education policy, healthcare, war.
The source material summarizes it perfectly with 2 main points. First, we pay far more attention to the content of messages than to information about their reliability.
We love the story.
We love the story. Small schools are better, so we don't check the math.
And the second point.
Second, statistics produce many observations that appear to beg for causal explanations but do not actually lend themselves to them. Many facts of the world are due to chance. Full stop. Causal explanations of chance events are inevitably wrong.
Causal explanations of chance events are inevitably wrong. That is a quote to put on the wall.
It really is. It's a powerful warning.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's try to crystallize this for everyone listening. What do we do with this information? We can't all become statisticians overnight. I'm not going to start calculating p-values every time I read the newspaper.
No, of course not. But we can become more skeptical of our own aha moments.
We can learn to activate our slow, deliberate system too more often.
Exactly. When you see a pattern, especially one that's based on small numbers, a streak of success for a CEO, a cluster of cancer cases in a small town, a hot stock picker, just pause.
Don't just buy the story immediately.
Ask yourself, is the sample size large enough to be meaningful? Or am I just looking at Jack's form marbles again?
Am I seeing real talent or am I just seeing variance?
The source leaves us with a great challenge. The next time you see a headline about a shocking new trend or a surprising discovery, find the numbers in the article. If the numbers are small, the trend is very likely just an illusion of pattern.
And remember, jumping to conclusions is a safer sport in the imagination than it is in reality.
Well said. Embrace the doubt. It's actually safer there than in false certainty.
That's it for this deep dive into the illusion of pattern. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Stay curious.